Good afternoon, everyone. I am Jack Conklin. Most of you don't know me because I'm new to the area, but I am the lead pastor for Williamsburg, Fife Lake, South Boardman, and East Boardman United Methodist Churches. And it is my honor to be here today. I had an opportunity to meet with Terry and with Brett and with Gordon and with Jessica, the other day. With 4 churches, you can imagine I'm really struggling remembering anybody's name these days. But we had an opportunity to spend some time talking about what we were going to do today. I'd like to share with you something that's probably familiar to most of you, but maybe not in this way. It's probably the best known psalm in the Bible, the 23rd Psalm. I'm reading in the New Living Translation, if that matters, but what I would like to do is to read this one phrase at a time and ask you to simply hear and ponder those words. Can we do that? The Lord is my shepherd. I have everything I need. He lets me rest in green pastures. And he leads me beside peaceful streams. He renews my strength. He guides me along right paths, bringing honor to his name. And even though I walk through the dark valley of death, I will not be afraid, for you, Lord, are close beside me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Now, if you think about what a rod and a staff do for a shepherd, they keep the sheep together, so they keep the sheep safe. And that staff can also help to use them to drive off anything that threatens them. You prepare a feast before me in the presence of my enemies. You welcome me as a guest, anointing my head with oil, and my cup overflows with blessing. Surely your goodness and your unfailing love will pursue me all the days of my life, and I will live in the house of the Lord forever. Will you pray with me, please? God, we come before you today in this place as people who are grieving deeply the loss of 2 beloved family members, 2 dear and cherished friends, 2 people who have touched so many lives in so many profound ways that their loss is a continuing reminder to us. We come here today to say goodbye. We come here today to seek hope. And we come here today to encourage, support, and hold each other up. We pray, Lord, that you would be here present with us and that you would touch each and every life, each and every heart who's in this room today. In Christ's name, Amen. Now, I'm going to do something I don't normally do when I do a memorial service or a funeral. I'm going to ad-lib quite a bit. We're going to get kind of creative. But considering they all worked as part of a landscaping company, that's kind of the world, isn't it? You take something and you make it into something new and different. Hopefully better. If you want to get paid, it's going to make it better. And I think we can do that here today as well. I know that there are people here who are deep and faithful Christian believers. I know there are others here who have an awful lot of doubts. And that's okay. If you're a deep and faithful Christian believer, you have doubts too. We all live in that world of doubt. Why? Because we are not in the place where we see God fully. We are in a place that's broken. We are in a place that's hurting. We are in a place where there's deep desperation. I'm not one who's going to stand up here and beat you over the head with the Bible. If you noticed, I have a pretty small Bible anyway. It wouldn't do a lot of damage. But the thing I do want to tell you is what I believe. I believe that we are creatures of a living God. And that God is ever creating, ever making things new. And I believe that He's doing that here today as well. No doubt some who are here today, because it is so normal, it's such a natural part of the grieving process, are angry at God. How could God do this? Why didn't God prevent this? Let me tell you what I believe. See, I believe we don't worship a God of death. We worship a God of life. Jesus said, I am the life. I am the life eternal. As a matter of fact, He even said the last enemy to be defeated by God is going to be death. God does not like death, and God does not bring death. But we live in a fallen world. We live in a world where there is pain. We live in a world where there's hurt. We live in a world where there is anguish. We live in a world where there is sickness. But when we get a little closer here, I want to share some words of hope with you. Because I believe there is great hope to be found here today. I'd like to share with you a few words about what God says in the person of Jesus Christ. It all has to do with living and dying. And we find it in the first part of the 14th chapter of the Gospel of John, where Jesus said to His disciples, who were very concerned, very worried, because they knew that He was about to go and to be killed Himself, He said to them, don't be troubled. You trust in God. Now trust in me. There are many rooms in my Father's house, and I'm going to prepare a place for you. If this were not so, I'd tell you plainly. When everything is ready, I will come and I will get you, so that you will always be with me where I am. I believe those words are as current today to each and every one of God's children, which is all of us, as they were to His disciples back then. We're going to come back to that in just a little while. Chelsea has asked to be able to offer some music today, so Chelsea.
Son? I didn't know, I wasn't incredibly close with Ricky, but he's always been a part of my family. Angie's been like an aunt to me. And she's held such a strong presence in my life, and I didn't realize what a great role model she was. She always just held such a sweet presence. She never sugarcoated anything, but she made everything sweet, and she was honest and nurturing, and just really grateful for everything that both of them have done for my family and for me. And try to get through this without crying too much. This is a song borrowed from a dear friend and hero of mine, and I think it'll just bring hope. You know, one thing, Angie just kept trucking on no matter what was ever thrown at her, and so that's what this song is about. This is for all of us as we keep going. There is work
Angela Marie Matheson, age 46, of Kalkaska, passed away on August 30th, 2017. She was born on September 7th, 1970, in Detroit. Growing up in the Manistee Lake area, she enjoyed boating and being with her friends around the lake. After graduating from Kalkaska High School in 1988, Angie studied cosmetology in Traverse City and becoming a hard-working stylist who took great pride in her work. Angie was also worked as a personal assistant and secretary for Barker Creek Nursery. She was a true friend to many, and she sacrificed her time to help others. Ricky Matheson, age 43, of Kalkaska, passed away on January 6, 2017. Ricky was born on June 7, 1974, in Detroit, and also graduated from Kalkaska High School, where he was a talented athlete. After school, Ricky worked as a stonemason and had the gift of working with his hands. Ricky would eventually work 2 years for a private contractor in Iraq. He had a laugh that was contagious and was an incredible friend to all. As brother and sister, Ricky was Angie's protector, and Angie was Ricky's guardian. If you knew one, you knew them both. They had a bond that was unbreakable. Angie and Ricky will be missed by many, including Brett Turnbull, Angie's life partner, and Jessica Coy, Ricky's life partner. Angie and Ricky were preceded in death by their mom, Toni Jean Matheson, aunt, Jacqueline Marie Zundel, uncle, James Zundel Jr., and grandparents, Fayette and Dorothy Van Buskirk and James Zundel. The words that were used in there, if you knew one, you knew both. Unfortunately, I didn't have the honor of having the chance to meet either of them. But I think I know them. I think I know them by the number of people in this room. I think I know them by the stories that I have heard about them. I think I know them by the impact they've had on so many lives. When all of us gathered Friday, Thursday? What day is today? Saturday. We gathered on Wednesday. Brett and Gordon and Terry and Jessica. I don't know why I'm doing that. Jessica gathered, and the first thing I asked them is just share some adjectives with me about them. Angela was a giver. She was a mama hen to everybody. But she also maintained confidentiality. She was epitome of what a person is supposed to be. One of the persons from one of the churches I serve now and I were speaking before the service, and she was talking about how Angie was a caregiver to her own grandmother. And she said she treated her as if she were her own grandmother as well. Ricky was supportive, he was kind-hearted, he was soft-spoken, he was a gentle spirit, but he was physically strong, and he was respectful, and he was a hard worker, very loyal. This one I had two different adjectives for. He had a calming smile and he had a quirky smile. I saw the pictures. He always contributed, but he never sought attention. The thing that was remarkable to me was the closeness between the two of them. How they were each other's best friends, best supporters, closest confidants, guardians, bodyguards, if you will. And they cared for one another. And Angie had hoped that she would be able to arrange for a memorial service for Ricky after he died. But she soon after got sick again herself. But I'd like you to keep some words in mind that I shared with you a little while ago. Our God is not a God of death. He's a God of life. And I want to build on that a little bit later. I have, at the folks' request, we have designed this so that those of you who desire to do so will have an opportunity to come and to share some of your memories of both Angie and Ricky. And Gordy, I think, wants to start first. I did tell anybody that if you want to get up but you don't think you can do it, if you have it in writing, I'll be honored to be able to share those with everybody as well. If you'll just come up to the microphone here.
Put my glasses on. It's a wonderful crowd here, and Angie, be proud. She sees the people she's touched. I have just a few words that I want to say about her, as well as Ricky. As well as what I knew Ricky, I could call him a friend. He always said hello and talked. He also knew how close I was to Angie, and that easily gained his respect. I saw how talented he was as a stonemason, creating some works of art towering into the sky. His funny laugh rumbled the room. I didn't often see him in life, but always was happier when I did. We had a mutual person who meant the world to both of us, and a secret understanding on who we were watching out for and protecting our Angie. I've known Angie since I moved to Kalkaska in the early 80s. She was a magnet of comfort and understanding, and the stories I could tell, holy crap. Joe Jones at the Manistee Lake restaurant would take us for crazy joyrides, sometimes till 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, partaking in the festivals the whole way. I remember sitting on a 2-track and talking for hours about her mom, Tony. She was sad and mad, but began to cope. These are some things that have impressed me about knowing Angie and having her in my friendship, and how it means to me. And if I relate them to you, you as well will feel them too, because it's just how she was. She made me giddy. If you've ever had the laugh virus, where you just cry, and then you laugh, and then you look at each other and you laugh, and you can't stop laughing. I've not done that with anybody more so than what I've done with Angie. She'd make me cry so much. There would be moisture coming out of all orifices. She always comforted. She always was a comforter. It didn't matter if you were having a good day or a bad day. She always was there. And even recently with my mom's passing, she would ask what she could do, even though that was enough just for her to ask what she could do. First time that my partner Terry ever met Angie, we had a farmhouse, and Angie and Shelley, they were off in Traverse City having a hoorah of a time. 4 o'clock in the morning, and of course we're out in the country, no one locks their doors. Angie and Shelley come banging in through the house. Hey, Gordon, I haven't seen her for 4 years. And then, however, they found out even where I lived at the time. For goodness sake, I don't know, but. I hope he lives here. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, they come in, and then we finally get up, and I'm like, this is Terry, and then we talked, and of course got him sobered up, but by no means should them two have drove in from Traverse that night. She worked her butt off. You know, she was a determined list maker, accomplishing things, and would work sometimes late into the night while we would all be sleeping. That was her shift, that midnight calming shift. You couldn't get her out of bed in the morning, but honestly, she was a night owl, and that's where she accomplished many things in her life, is she would sit down and spend time with herself, and she would solve things when she had time and no one else was bothering her. She loved helping others, even if she could just do something that made her feel good. She was a tender. She would cater coffee. She would cater anything. Kids come in the nursery, and she would cater right out of the freezer, right to an ice cream pop and give to the kid. She just loved doing that. What I'll miss most about Angie is we used to have this Angie Gordy time. It was never nothing. But we did have it. I would get my hair cut, which I'm missing her. But we would have coffee sometimes on occasion, and we would spend hours and hours just talking about nothing and everything all together. She's a freaky eater. She had to have her stuff her way. She would go through, pick and pull and pick, but still fill her belly. I did learn how to cook for her as well as Terry did, so she would make special requests and we would make them come true. In closing, I just want to say how I feel about passing on. My feelings about passing on is that of energy. I believe in heaven, but I have my own impression. Energy can never die. It can just transform. It can transform into the wind, the lift of a butterfly, the heat of the sun, and the uniqueness of a snowflake. And if any of us really thought about it, if we notice the touch of a breeze or a special sunset that was sent to you, these are comforts. These are comforts what we could all look forward to and believe that they are touches from heaven. The messages of hellos and that Ricky and Angie are okay.
I gotta get Kleenex for this. I don't know if I can follow this. But, Brad, shut up. I do a lot of guest speaking. And before I would go off on my little garden club journeys or recently to a Morgan compost thing, I'd sit down with Angie and tell her how unprepared I was, how I didn't have any damn notes, the audience was way smarter than me. And she always said, you'll do good. You'll do great. The girls love you. I can't get enough of that, by the way. But she always just had this ability, even if you didn't believe her, to blow enough wind up your skirt to get you out the door and to make you feel like, okay, if I got her confidence, if I got her vote of approval, if I have her love, it really goes a long way. I miss her so much. But in a way, I don't. And I don't mean this because, she's passed on, but I mean it's because I just constantly feel her. I just do. And I hope you guys can too. And if it's not now, it will be later. It might be in a moment. I sit at her desk, and I think you are so anal. I'm like, Cindy will ask me how to do things, and I'll be like, I didn't really listen to Angie on that one, but do we file from the front or the back? Go look, because it'll be consistent. She would have done it perfectly. And she used to come into her office, and not on time, and she'd always call, and I'd be like, I know. And she'd come in, and you boys wrecked her world so many times. And she'd say, oh, they pillaged my village, And it was because she had the tape right there. She had, she had 2 candles, as if she was doing some type of seance. And she would get the craziest phone calls. And she'd even say to people, because she wasn't a gardener. I mean, she loved flowers, purple her favorite color. But she'd say, well, ma'am, you can Google that. Oh, could you? And she'd be like, oh, yes, I can do that. And my mom pointed out that she had a very silky voice. Well, I can attest that she also had a sexy voice. And back when she smoked, it was even more sexy. And even she would tell you that. But I would have this client call Mr. King. He's probably passed on by now. And I would be in my desk overhearing this conversation as he just simply called to pay his bill. And Angie, hi, Mr. King. I won't even go there, but finally, I'd step on. I'm like, what in the heck? But where's your tattoos? Oh, the one on your arm. Where else do you have them? And I'm like, pay the bill, or you're getting an extra 20%, But it was a silky voice, and my mom even pointed out, Brett might know different. Actually, he's told me different, but she never raised it. I mean, I never heard her scream, "Go team," or get crazy at a concert. I'm sure she did. But I also never heard her cuss at anyone. And I know a few of us really peed her off a few times, and again, mostly the pillage of the village. But she helped our family out tremendously, and she never wanted anything for it. She would drop everything to do it, and she did it with such grace and honor. And even when she wasn't personally doing it, she made it possible for Gordy and I to do it, to get that breakaway, for other family, to be supportive, to ask what we needed. She gave more of herself in her lifetime, which is shorter than mine, than I probably will ever be able to give. And if I've learned anything from her, is if you want to have a good friend and a best friend, be one. Because she was the best friend. You didn't have to ask for it. My sweet spiritual niece, who sings like an angel and is getting better, she uses the phrase a lot, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is she held space. And I thought about that, held space, holding space. I'm thinking, the box, But what she did is she created an environment that was you and her. She held space for you because she made eye contact. She listened. She didn't roll her eyes, well, when it was appropriate, especially at me. I was a brat. But she took time, and so many times my guys would come in and, girlfriend issues or money issues, and she was in the middle of a million things, payroll or taxes or something horrible, and payroll's good. She'd set it down, and she's like, all right, you and me, She held space. She was a relationship because she could relate. And when she didn't know, she told you that straight up. When she didn't care, she might have said, I don't know anything about that, but I'll listen, But she held space not just with me and my family and my business and my employees, but every one of you, I'm sure, if you think about it, there was one time where you guys just held space together. And that's a funny hippie saying, but it actually, I kind of got that in some times where I needed to really kind of figure out, where all my feelings were going, and how I could productively kind of put them all in one and say, okay, Angie is not dead. She's just not. Ricky is not dead. They're in each one of us. We're not going to put them away. We're not going to release them somewhere. We just can't. I would be honored if when I pass on, that feeling was still there for people. It'd be a great way to go. And she did it with dignity. Ricky did too. He fought. Ricky was, and I have to say something about Ricky because Gordon's right. He understood that we cared about his sister. If we hadn't, oh no, we would not have been there. He would have made sure there was a wall between us. He took down every brick that he probably built himself to allow that relationship, and he did it with a lot of people. He worked his tail off. And the work that he did, Mike did, Tim, Bruce, you stand back and you're like, what? Who can do that? Some superhuman. Some crazy guy that had a couple beers and said, you know what? We can get that rock up there. And I laugh because you look at some of the pictures and, there's a lot of beer in those pictures. And it makes you a little thirsty saying, but there's also a lot of smiles, and that's who he was. He walked in the room and he was just there. He wasn't to stir up any pot. He wasn't there to cause any trouble. He always checked on his sister. At his memorial, Angie wanted it to be about him. She was diagnosed or kind of had some things in the mix that She didn't want out because she didn't want those eyes to be turned on her, which often happens when, female's down, the guys surround her, She didn't want that. She totally didn't want that. She personally pulled me aside and said, hey, shut up. This is not about me. And Ricky, he was the same way. It was not about him. He wanted to be out in the parking lot with a beer. He wanted to say thank you to people, but in a humble way that didn't ask for sympathy. It was an amazing time. It was a benefit with a person there that had a terrible illness and a terrible prognosis, and yet everyone had a good time. And Ricky had a good time and raised a lot of good money for him, too. I was amazed. Rita, you're amazing, too. The people she surrounded her with, you know how opposites attract, and I'll be done here soon. Some of you ladies out there are super crazy. You just are. Rita, you guys are characters. Angie was always kind of easygoing, mellow, kind of consistent. She did a few crazy things, and we won't go there. But the girlfriends she would bring over, I'm like, what? I'm like, they laugh all the time, they're goofy, they say funny things. So opposites do attract, And they also attract really good, strong people. So I am still taking food requests from Angie for Brett and for Jessica. And you'll get a little Cajun from Gordon. I hope you like that. But thanks for all you guys coming and for everything you've meant to me, my family, to Angie, to Jessica, and Brett. And leave today happy and hold space for someone.
All right, let's see if I can get through this. I'm supposed to be a professional, but got Angie involved. You never know. First of all, forgive me, I didn't know Ricky as well as I did Angie. But as he said, you know one, you know both. I have a sister, and it was always so cool to be around them because I knew they had the attachment. I knew what that was about, and they were great. I got to share a lot of Ricky's birthdays because we were close, and Ange always cooked him dinner, so I'm like, yes. We'll talk about our food a little bit later. I can count on one hand the people that I can trust and respect and that I put so much of myself into, like Angie. I knew I could trust her. It's very telling. She's still my emergency contact for everything. My doctor's office, because I knew she would know what to do. She was always a calm spirit, and she knew the right way to do it, and I'm going to miss her, because I knew I could always count on her. People like her are rare in life, Like you guys said, she was always willing to help anyone, no matter how much you put her out, or if she had to stay up late, she'd get you a haircut. She would help you, and she was always willing to do that, so... some of the things I'm going to miss a lot is our talks about how horribly disorganized the world is and how we were going to fix it. We were both very OCD and sort of anal, people called us. I don't know what the heck that's about, but we were sort of kindred spirits that way, and we would get together sometimes when each of us had a project. We were like, oh, shit, I got to call Angie on this one, because I need her help. And so I'll miss that. I'll miss my plus one. She went to so many shows with me. We went backstage to Three Doors Down and Tantric and Shinedown one time, and it was just so fun to see the excitement in her eyes, because I get to do this stuff all the time. I'm like, hey, Shinedown, I know you, Brent, how are you doing? But it was fun to take her to those things, because she got to, she met a lot of people and she shared a lot of people's lives, but to take her to something like that was exciting because she just thought it was really fun. And she was always the best person to travel with. She always brought Kleenex with her. She, everything that you needed for that trip, she was ready. She was like on it, and she was always a good travel partner. So 2 letters, PR. I don't really have to say much more than that. The folks that know that, just thanks for always being ready and always sharing. I'll miss her chicken stroganoff in particular. One of the best meals I've ever had. We were roommates for a lot of years, and she cooked an amazing amount of food, and she always put a lot of heart into it. She put love into her food because it was just something. She worked so hard at it, you know. She wasn't one that would you know, she would take on the dishes that, you know, it was hard to prepare or whatever. She didn't care. She wanted to make everybody's favorites. And that is why the broccoli salad downstairs, it has the smallest onions I could cut them into, because she hated big pieces of onions in anything. The haircuts, she was best, not only at haircuts, the neck massages during the shampoos, but she was like a counselor, you know. If you're having a rough day or whatever, if you're having a great day, she'd just talk to you. She'd make you feel at home. She'd give you a good haircut. And I remember when I moved to Sheboygan, I wasn't able to get down here as much, and she actually taught me how to give myself a buzz cut. Not only that, but she got me the right equipment. She took it apart and she showed me how to oil it and change the brushes and the motor and everything. And then she showed me how to do it, and she actually stopped me. I was doing it wrong, and she's like, "Stop that." And it was like the second time in my life I heard her raise her voice, but she was like, "No, really, stop that." And, but she told me, you know, as I went along, that the grasshopper, you know, graduated, and I was as good as her, if not a little bit better. So thank you for the buzz cuts. But also thank you, too. I got to share that Angie worked so much. She worked a lot. I got to go to the salon. I helped her clean. I helped her with Christmas decorations. I'd help her with anything she needed, because she was like my sister when my sister wasn't around. But she brought a lot of friends into my life, you know, all the gals at the salon. We had a blast. It was sort of like being backstage at a concert. You know, you think, you know, it's all whatever, but there's some crazy stuff that happens at salons. I always had a lot of fun. The nickname Robo Steve 2000, she used it when we would do projects. And I'll give you an example of this. I remember I was over here for an event in Traverse, and I was going home to Sheboygan. Didn't have to work the next day, and I stopped over to Angie's to, you know, I would always stop and say hi. And she had her project. She was like, "Oh, the garage is full of returnables, and, you know, this is out of whack." And she was just upset, you know. And I always wanted to, like, help her, you know. And I'm like, "Ange," I'm like, "It's only 1 o'clock. I'm like, "You working tomorrow?" She's like, "No, I got the day off." I'm like, "I do too." We ended up cleaning till 5:45 in the morning. All the projects were done, but I always got the big hug and the thank you to Robo Steve 2000, so that was really cool. I'll miss that calming tone that she had in her voice, and I think a lot of us have talked about this. No matter what you were talking about, she'd bitch right with you, you know, and get riled up and everything, but at the end of it, you always knew she was going to give you good advice, and it was in that motherly tone, and it was always calm, and you could count on it. It was consistent. I'm going to miss it. She was more than a friend. She was family, someone I'll miss dearly. Got to say thanks to Brett. I was grateful that you were in her life. She needed that. She never had anybody, at least when I was around, she never dated anybody on a regular basis. And when she had you and go over and visit you guys, I mean, it was like, get a room, for heaven's sakes. Well, you guys were always cuddling, and you were rubbing her feet and doing the things that Angie didn't have in her life for so long. And I'm so grateful for you, Brett, and I thank you. Thank you for that. And also thank you to Terry and Gordy and Rita and all you guys that really chipped in when she needed you. I wasn't able to be here, so thank you. And thanks to everybody for coming out.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jason. I'm part of the Barker Creek family. And I know I've been there since 2012 or 11. And every day I come in from work, I could see Angie in there, and it didn't matter how shitty your day was. It didn't matter how bad it was. She was always there to make you laugh. And I'm gonna miss that, because there's a lot of days like that at Barker Creek. Yeah, you have a lot of days like that, but Angie was always there to make you happy. And it didn't matter if it was the last, if Steve would say PR in her purse, she'd give it to you and say, here, go have a good day. I just got married, I guess July 20th, 21st. Glad she's not up here, but Angie did my wife's hair for her, and my wife hasn't had her haircut since I've been with her, and it's been 9 years. And Jessica was freaked out about it, and if it wasn't for Angie, I don't think she would ever got her hair cut. And Angie was a person that could make somebody go through with something if they had the doubts. If you had a doubt in your mind, she could get it out of there. And that's just really basically all I want to say is I miss her. I don't really know Ricky a whole lot. I met him one time about 3 o'clock in the morning when Angie called me because she was drunk and locked the keys out of Gordy's truck while they was down in Florida. So yeah, needless to say, me and John had to go rescue her and Ricky. But it was pretty cool. I was glad she had the confidence to call me that time one night to be able to come and save her. But I'm gonna miss her, and we love her.
I did have one that was handed to me, and it's written, and she was afraid I wouldn't be able to read her writing until I showed her mine. So it just... Angie and Ricky will be dearly missed, but never forgotten. They both were very good to loyal friends to have. Angie had such a big heart, she really couldn't say no to anyone. She would think of everyone else's feelings and well-being before herself. Ricky was also a very kind-hearted friend. If he thought you could use a hand, he'd be there. I don't think anyone could have a conversation with either one of them without laughing. They both had a contagious laugh, and also had a way of just being there to listen. I'm sure they're both listening now, so let's celebrate their lives and memories today. Let's let them know how much they have impacted people's lives the very short time we had with them. Let's make Angie and Ricky proud by sharing and caring for each other. If there's one thing to take away from this today, is tomorrow is never promised. So live, laugh, and love every day like it is your last. Love you, Bud, and love you, Ricky. Until we meet again, we will miss you both every day. Love you. Love Rita and Berno. Somehow I think that she would say it with a lot more passion than I did, but as I was listening, I thought of a passage of Scripture that I think is very applicable here. It's from the end of the Gospel of Matthew in the 26th chapter. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you fed me. I was thirsty, and you gave me a drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me into your home." Even at 3 o'clock in the morning, sounds like. "I was naked and you gave me clothing. I was sick and you cared for me. I was in prison and you visited me." Then those righteous ones will reply, "Lord, when did we ever see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink, or a stranger and show you hospitality, or naked and give you clothing? When did we ever see you sick or in prison and visit you?" And the king will tell them, "I assure you, when you did it to one of these least of my brothers and sisters, you were doing it for me. Is that Ricky? Is that Angie? I said earlier that I don't believe that God is one who brings death. But there's another side to that. I believe that God sometimes takes those we love in order that they not suffer. And I believe that God took Ricky when he did. And he took Angie when she did. Because God, in his infinite wisdom, knew that if they lived any longer, they would suffer terribly. And think about what this meeting today would be like if that had happened. I believe that Angie and Ricky are alive. I believe that Angie and Ricky have gone to see their Savior. And I believe that when they got to see their Savior, he looked at them. And just based on all those things I just read and all the things you just said, I believe he said to them, "Well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into your Father's happiness." Friends, I don't know about you, but I can't think of any more wonderful words than those. It has been my honor to be here with you this afternoon, to come to know these two people with all of their idiosyncrasies and all of their quirks, all of their loves, all of their passions. They lived. They lived life to the fullest. And just look around. Go ahead, look around. This is the greatest legacy that anyone could ever have. That they've entered into their Father's happiness, but by the lives that they lived, they touched the hearts of so many. As you know, Ricky and Angie both dealt with some terrible diseases. As we were gathered around the table the other day, Gordy, I think it was, suggested, "Can we play Amazing Grace at the service?" I said, "I'll go you one better." Some of you are familiar with this song, but there's a song by Chris Tomlin which directly speaks to what they went through and what they've done. It's called Amazing Grace. My chains are gone, and we're going to hear that now.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. My chains are gone, I've been set free. My God, my Savior has ransomed me. has promised good to me. His word, my hope secures. He will my shield and portion be as long as life